AI is not going to be able to do that right away. Now, eventually, I think it will. Just like these telephone trees have gotten better and better and better and better, eventually, AI, because it's constantly learning, will learn about you, will learn about your business, will learn about accounting growth, the economy, the environment. It's not there yet. And I don't want you to go into this believing that that's there yet. If you need a CFO strategist friend in the foxhole, it's not going to be an AI robot quite yet. If you have Hey, I'm Pam Pryor, and this is the Cash Flow Podcast. We're going to talk about everything related to money in your business. Without further ado, let's hop right in. Welcome back to Cash Flow. You're going to notice that our appearance is a little different again. We're in transition to our new studio, so we're back in my office at a little bit of a different angle than usual. But stay with us. We're migrating to an awesome new studio. You got a sneak peek of it in episode 10. We'll be down there very soon for all of our episodes. In today's brews, we're heading down to the shore, and we're going to taste the MudHen Brewing Company's Wildwood Haze IPA in celebration of the coming summer. In the news section, we're going to dive a little further into AI with our friend Francis and actually find out very practically the very tools we're using here in Priorities from the AI conference and Francis's knowledge from before. And then finally, in our Buck's Tale, we're going to specifically talk about the cons of AI bookkeeping. Now, last episode, again, that was episode 10, we talked about the pros of what QuickBooks in particular, or Intuit, is doing. This week, we're going to hit the cons. So stay tuned as we dive right in with our first segment on brews. Okay, time to kick it all off with our brew. Got my handy glass, got my handy beer. Let's see. First of all, the sound. It's no good without the sound. All right, let me pour this guy and see what happens here. We'll just do a little. There we go. Okay. All right, so this MudHen Hazy is indeed hazy. We are cruising down the shore today to MudHen Brewing Company in Wildwood, New Jersey. Those of us from the East Coast, Philadelphia, Jersey area call that down the shore. And MudHen actually offers a really welcoming atmosphere. They've got food, they've got these handcrafted beers, and they're known for their premium ingredients. I'm particularly drawn to this one because of the name MudHen Brewing Company. I don't know if y'all know this, but I went to the University of Delaware for both my degrees, and they aren't the Mud Hens, but they're the Fighting Blue Hens. If there was a mascot to be embarrassed of, I think mine might be it. But it's close to my heart. So the Mud Hens right down the street, or across the shore, across the way at the shore in Jersey. So a little hazy. First, let's talk about the brewmasters there at MudHen. It's Tony, who is a Cape May County native, so a New Jersey native, and he's had a lifelong love of service and brewing, and his passion led him from homebrewing to really becoming the brewmaster at MudHen. And there, what he's trying to do is create real joy with every beer. And his partner is Andrew, who's bringing a perspective from Minnesota. So with Andrew's homebrewing adventures and experience at a place called the Lion and the Bear, he found Liquid Gold, which is one of MudHen's brews, or what he calls MudHen's brews. And together they continue to brew these top-notch beers for their loyal fans. So let's raise a glass to these passionate brewers and explore their Wildwood Haze here. Oh, I like that. Okay, so I get a lot of citrus. It's orangey, grapefruity citrus, which is really nice. Not a real bitey hop, but it does have a bite that sits kind of at the back of the tongue, and it stays there. So the IPA taste stays there on the tongue, and it makes you want another sip. Yeah, that's very good. So this is officially featuring, and this is weird because I wouldn't even know how to taste for this, Cashmere and Motueka hops. So it's balancing a hop darkness with some lemon lime and tropical fruit. And I definitely taste the lemon lime, and yeah, I can smell the tropical fruit in it and have a taste of that as well. It's a relatively high ABV at 7%. And let's see. I have to be sure not to bias it because it's MudHens and it's the shore. So hang on. Let me not think. Actually, I am thinking of myself on the beach, feet up, with a beer. Let's see what happens. We'll give it our PBKPI here. Francis going to have to remind me it's 1 to 10, I believe. We're going to go in the 7.5 with this again. I probably need to stop doing half numbers. So 7 or 8. I'm going to go with a 7. Good, strong IPA. You need to like IPAs. It definitely tastes like an IPA. But I'm a fan. Pretty good. Way to go, MudHen Brewing Company. Welcome back to What's News. We're going to do a little bit of a continuation here from episode 10, and I suggest you jump back and listen to that because my guest during the What's News section is back with us again today. And it's Francis Plata, who is on our team and is our social media director, production crew, director of all videos, camera guy, everything. Did I leave anything out, Francis?
I think that about covers it.
And we have now added to that the AI master. So wanted to give you, after last week's very general episode on the AI conference that Francis attended on behalf of our team, how we're integrating what tools today to create the content that we create, like this podcast, like our social media posts, our blogs, what we do on our website. And wanted you all to have and be able to walk away with, hey, here is a list of things I can try. In most cases, they're free to start, so you can see if you like them. But what, Francis, what you said to me, welcome back. Thank you, by the way.
Thanks for having me.
What you said to me that really jumped out is that, Pam, we've been using AI like kindergartners. It's like we've got this amazing tool and we are scraping around at the, very bottom of what can be done with it. And you've worked very hard to incorporate all the right things into our business so that technology, we leverage technology for what it's best at, and we leverage ourselves for what we're best at. So I'd love for you to give folks a rundown on what you use and how you use it, with some very practical tools that somebody could go get these things, set them up, and have their own productions automated a little bit more than they do today.
Yeah, I love that. First off, thanks for having me back on. It was such a blast last week, and I'm really, really just excited to kind of share about how people can really streamline their processes and their flows with AI because, everybody has so much to do when you're an entrepreneur and when you're doing things the way that we do things. And, getting back that hour, getting back that 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours, even sometimes with these things,
Oh,
it's so key to continuing to grow and scale and
mhm.
empower our teams and us to do the best that we can possibly do. So it's just such an important message, and I'm really excited to kind of share our flows here.
Mhm.
But kind of going back to what you said, yeah, when I got back from the AI summit last week, it was so weird because I went into it thinking that we were doing everything we possibly could and on the forefront there. And kind of what I learned was we've been working with our hands tied behind our back and a blindfold on.
Oof.
And, that's one, a rude awakening, but a needed one. And I'm excited to dive in with our processes and optimizing them. But just to give people a little bit of a brief, a lot of these tools, before we go into the specifics of them, are free to use to start with their base plan. So I don't want anybody to think, oh, I'm going to have to invest hundreds
Mhm.
of dollars to jive in here. No, a lot of these are free for the base models, and the base models do the job. A lot of these things you don't necessarily even need to dive in with the pro plan
All
for.
the bells and
But
whistles.
yeah, exactly. But going into kind of what we do, right? The main thing I want to kind of talk about is the podcast, right? Everybody that's listening loves podcasts. Obviously, we're listening to a podcast now. We're on a podcast. But the podcast, there's so much that goes into a podcast that a lot of people don't really think about. When you're doing a podcast, you're doing editing, you're writing out scripts, you're doing research beforehand, and there's a whole process that goes into before you record a podcast, and then you record the podcast, and that's 1 hour of the flow. But 90% of your work for a podcast is really done on the back end or on the front end, before or after you record. And some of the things that, take up that time is that script writing, is the editing afterwards, is cutting out the silences and going through and optimizing sound and all of that stuff. And one of the things that has allowed us to output the content that we do at the rate we do is AI. All of the content, all of the stuff that we produce podcast wise and promotional wise for the podcast has AI in it. So to be completely transparent, everything that we're outputting for this show that anybody's listening to has AI infused
Mhm.
into it. And
And I'm going to jump in there because I think this
yeah,
is so important. There are two things I want to speak to before you dive in. One is I want you, if you're an entrepreneur, to notice that when Francis came back from this conference, I said, let's have a team meeting and talk about what we can do. What you're going to find with AI, it's going to very much change the roles of the people in your organization. And you want to make sure that's not a threat. And the way to make sure it's not a threat is to have at it with open arms and to talk about all the different opportunities that now this is going to bring to other people in the organization with their newly found free time. But also, you don't want to jump too deeply into just automating to automate. You want to make sure you pick the right things. So that's the first one. And the second is we do say, we do use AI, and you're going to hear how we use AI. But the content, the meat of what we're providing, the human element of what we're providing is in that 1 hour where we do the recording. And it's not like we go out to AI and say, hey, tell us how to be a CFO or tell us how to do bookkeeping. We do the research either through our normal jobs or otherwise, but then we use AI to pull all that research together and help us come up with some really cool ways to talk about it. So there's nothing to be ashamed of having AI integrated into your whole process. But I'm not an AI Pam. I can prove it here somehow. I don't know how. And that's not an AI Francis. But I will tell you that I could do a complete podcast and not be here. Okay,
yeah.
that's possible, but we're not doing it. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. Okay, in you go.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on that, one of the things that you kind of just said, right, was that the meat, that 1 hour where we record is the human element. I would go even further there and say that, we 90% of the stuff, yes, is being kind of developed by AI, but each step, even in the front end and the back end aspect, you have to be infusing the human element
Yeah,
into the
you
AI
have to be
in
an
order to
expert
accomplish it.
on something.
Yeah,
You can't just. I
yeah,
couldn't do this
exactly.
on how to have a green thumb and growing plants in your house. Well, I
Exactly.
could, but it wouldn't be me, and it probably wouldn't be good.
It wouldn't be me either. I got to be honest there. But what's so interesting. So just going into our flows and how we actually use this and how we leverage this. So leading up to this podcast, you went to the store, you bought your beer, and you shot me a message and said we need a brief on the beer. You gave me the beer name, and that was kind of it. And what I did was I took that beer name, I pulled up the website of the brewery, I copy and pasted all of the brewery information and the beer specific information that we were pulling into ChatGPT, which is a software developed by OpenAI, and essentially it's your the big one that everybody's heard about. You develop bots through ChatGPT, but ChatGPT essentially is the AI that everybody's talking about right now, or one of the biggest ones, I should say. But we dropped all that into there, and we asked it to write us a detailed summary, entertaining tone, and give us kind of just a brief that we can use for our about the brewery section, quote unquote, on the podcast. And what it gave us was everything that you just heard Pam read on the brew section about that beer was given to us by artificial intelligence.
Except my personal taste notes; those were all me.
Except the taste notes. Yeah, the taste notes are all Pam. 100% no AI there. But that was all developed by the AI. And that's simple. That's the simple kind of how you can kind of get your feet wet in this. But then after this podcast episode recording, what we'll end up doing is we'll download the transcripts, we'll download the recordings and all of that information. I'll dump it into Adobe Premiere, and we use a tool called Firecut. And Firecut essentially scrubs through the video and the audio. And what it'll do is it'll take out all the pauses, any of the repeated so's or ums that we may not want to have in there. It'll cut all that out for us, right? So that's 45 minutes to an hour of my job done in about 2 minutes. Like honestly. And then from there, what we'll do is we can assign the speakers. So for this section specifically, the what's new section, right? We would drop this in and we would assign it Francis and Pam. We would give you speaker A, me speaker B. And what it will do is it'll detect who is talking and which points you want to cut back and forth between these cameras. And it will do those cuts for you. So let's say right now,
This is all
I am,
Firecut, right? Still?
yeah, and this is all
Okay.
Firecut. So this is it's a plugin for Adobe that was developed by a third-party company. But this is all the same thing. It's just Firecut plugin on Adobe Premiere, and it just cuts between you and I back and forth to who's talking about which points that are needed emphasis, different things along those lines. You can set all your custom parameters. So let's say I want to focus in a little bit more 30 seconds on Francis at this point. You can do those, but it will do 90% of the work for you. And when I say, if anybody has ever edited a podcast or edited a video, and I mean actually sat down and really, really edited studio level editing
Two
instead
different
of,
audio feeds, two different
yeah,
video feeds. You're slapping it into one place. You're trying to line it up, make sure that it's even and smooth, and there are transitions. Yeah. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, and this just does it for you. And if anybody's edited before, how much of a struggle and how frustrating it can be to just sit there and cut back and forth every 15 to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And this does it for you in 2 minutes, So literally an hour of my workflow for the podcast development has been cut in 10%. And it's just, having that time back is invaluable. But then we
Now,
go
I'm
further.
a geek, so I'm going to drive on this a little bit because we
Yeah,
need the info internally, but everybody else could share it as well.
yeah.
Basically, this whole thing, both the ums and the ahs and the cutting the cameras at the right times to each person, all that's about an hour of your time before, and now we're down to 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on editing and how long the actual episode is, and
Mm-hmm.
what we have to cut in and out. But sometimes that specific process of part of the editing process could be 2 hours or 3 hours
Okay.
even.
So
Like
somewhere
the one that
between
we had.
60 to 120 minutes, we're reducing to two.
Exactly, yeah, and
Okay.
it's almost never going to be 100% perfect, but it's basically 90% of what you want. You know what I mean? And then you can fine tune it. And there's always going to be fine tuning. That's the
Oh,
big
sure.
emphasis that I want to add in here is that, we're not just kind of putting stuff in here and walking away. After we upload it and it does its job, we sit here and we fine tune for probably 15 to 20 minutes, right?
We
But
leverage the
even then,
human, right?
yeah.
So we leverage the tech to get 120 minutes down to two. And now of
Hmm.
that 120 minutes, you might put 60 back in it, but it's all to make it better. It's not just to
Yes.
create it. Okay.
Yes,
Got it.
100%. And that's kind of the edge there. We're empowering ourselves, not replacing anything that we're doing,
Love
but we're
that.
empowering each role. We're empowering each thing that we have to do. And
Francis, I
it
love
can
that. We're
go further and
empowering
further.
our team,
Yeah.
not replacing them.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, everybody hears, oh, my job's going to be taken by AI. And, you know, some people may just plug in AI into these roles, but not the people that are going the extra mile, not the people
Right.
that stand out, not the people that are doing things and doing business the right way. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? We're
Yep.
not losing any of that element.
Yep.
So just emphasizing that. But yeah, it's just, cutting down that much of the process is insane.
Crazy.
And that's just the first step.
So where does it go after it comes out of now you got another MP4 that's reduced, cut, edited, kind of
Yeah.
clean,
Yeah.
technically clean. Okay.
Mhm. And so from there, right, you have basically your cut of the episode. And what we would then do is we drop all of that into our software that we use called Descript. Now, this is just our flow and this is how we have found it to work for us. Also, just want to preface this by saying, if anybody knows this and thinks that there's a better flow, email me, Francis at
Comment
priorities.group.
below.
I am 100% fine with being corrected. None of this is, 100% like exactly fact. This is just how we do what we do and how we found that it works for us. But
Oh,
we're
I'm
always
going to
looking
jump
to
on
get
that a
better
little
too.
bit too, because you said something else that was interesting, and I think this points it out here. Like you
Hmm.
had said, I kind of feel like I don't know anything about AI. After going to this conference, it kind of hit you. I do know a little bit about AI. And I think the way I put it is the same way I feel about crypto and Web3 is I know about 2% of what there is to know. You probably know about 2% of what there is to know about AI,
Yeah.
maybe 10, but you know more than 98% of the population.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's, we're all kind of growing with this together. But anyway, go ahead.
yeah.
Yeah, and feel free to drop comments if you've got better ideas, different ideas. We are test animals over here, so we will test and play with anything.
100%. We will let us be your guinea pigs, please. We will
There you go.
100% test any processes or flows. um,
Cool. All right,
but
in the
yeah,
script, what do we do?
so in Descript, when we go into Descript, right, we use Descript, and you can do this through Adobe, but Descript infuses AI and allows you basically to turn on a setting called Studio Sound. And what Studio Sound does is it makes your audio supposedly studio level quality, right? You can set that from anywhere from 100 to 1% levels of intensity. But with us, the dogs are a part of the brand. Just kind of chaos a little bit is a part of the
Part of the
brand,
brand.
and the dogs, they'll come in, they'll do their thing, they bark during an episode every once in a while, and they'll go a little bit nuts. Studio Sound does the easier part for me and cuts the dogs out, or
Nice.
they take out all that background noises that is the crazy household, and it really kind of balances the audio, and gives you a little bit of an isolated voice, while also kind of taking out any of the reverb or the background,
Got it.
that may distort kind of your sound, and it really gives you a studio level equivalent, of audio for your podcast.
And
And
does
for
it lay it
podcasts,
right
audio
there
is so
on
key.
the MP4? Like it edits, you
Yeah,
still come out with MP4 as your output from the script?
yeah. It'll do all of that, based on your MP4. And the other really cool thing with the script is, Firecut will cut out your so's and ums, but Descript allows you to fully edit your video based on the script of the video. So it'll transcribe your video, and let's say, maybe editing, you're not super proficient with video editing and you just want to cut out some stuff here and there, a sentence or something along those lines. You can go through Descript and read the whole video in a essentially PDF transcript and edit that, and it will do the cuts on your video for you, which
So
is
I
also just
delete a
another
sentence,
feature.
it deletes it from the video.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And then the other crazy thing with the script that we've used a bit with us is, like I said, sometimes the dogs, sometimes the craziness of the prior house, it's a little bit hard to edit it out, right? So what we do is with the script, we're able to create an overdub clone of your voice, and we're essentially able to plug in a sentence and replicate that sentence with your clone's voice and drop that onto the podcast, if something isn't necessarily recoverable or fixable with studio sound, which we have had to do a few times.
All right, and this
And
is why
that's
you
crazy.
only work with people you trust.
Yes.
And so you actually answered my second question. I could actually change a sentence in the Descript
Yeah.
uh, transcript, and it would change the sent. Like if I say I flubbed a word,
Mhm.
and said instead of
That never happens, by the way, guys.
yeah, never, never, never. Especially after I've done my brew segment. But let's just say that I say, Francis Plata,
Mhm.
and you want to change it. So would you spell out like Plahta
Yeah.
in the transcript, and it would change it, and I would actually say Francis Plata.
Yeah.
See,
Exactly.
that's cool and scary as hell with the elections coming up. But
It is.
there is
It's
a little bit of
terrifying.
Pam AI, Pam clone in there when I flub or the dogs make a noise or some chaos happens in my surroundings, which
Yeah.
is frequent. Cool.
And the other thing that I would say with that is, the Descript does it well. They're not the best in the game at
Oh,
it.
cool.
There are tons of better voice replicators, video cloning replicators, all of that. Descript does it. Oh, there they are now.
There they are. Just
But
typing in.
Descript does this job, but it's not the best of the game. You know what I mean? It does enough to get by, and it does enough to where we're able to leverage it as a free kind of add-on in Descript. But it does not. Oop, what happened there?
Oops. Hang on. I've defeated my purpose here. Oh, I'm hitting buttons because I was trying to mute for the dog. Hang on. I'm trying to turn your camera back on. There you are. Wait, I still need your mic. There you
Can you hear
go.
me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to mute my mic and I muted yours instead. Sorry.
It's
Thank,
all good.
thank God we got
You
a
know the
producer and
deal.
editor and Descript on this.
It's all good. But yeah, Descript does this all, and it does a good job, but it's not the top of the line in the
Got
field,
it.
right? And it does just enough for us to where we can kind of plug in as needed, but There are really, really good programs like 11 Labs, like HeyGen, where, essentially you could put in a script for a video instead of a video, and it would give you a duplicated, cloned version of Pam with voice, and it would make the podcast for you. That is possible. We don't do that, I promise, but
Well,
it's
we don't.
possible.
We may do it as an experiment someday, and if we do, we'll tell
Yeah.
you like all over the episode. AI clone
Or we
cam or whatever.
won't,
Let's
and
scare
we'll
the
tell you
hell
the
out of
week
people that you
after.
could clone me. But okay, cool. All right, so now we have an MP4 out of Descript that is.
Yes.
Is there anything else Descript does for us?
No, so basically we're cutting out like, any additional specific kind of sentences and stuff like that, because Firecut will go through and it'll take out the so's, the those gap words. Descript will do that too, but Descript is a little bit easier for the editing out sentences or editing out chunks of things where, it's very clear. Like I can literally go in and search. A lot of times when you're saying or recording the podcast and you want something cut out, you literally just say, "Hey, Francis, cut out this part here." Literally all I do then is I just search, "Hey Francis, cut out this part here" as a sentence, and it'll take me to all the points where you say that. And then I'm able
Wow.
to cut that section out. So like, we're doing that and we clean that up and then we export it out of there. And from there, the process goes into Canva. And we use Canva because Canva is really easy. That's the
Okay.
biggest thing here is Canva is really, really easy to use. And Canva is also leaning more and more into leveraging AI in their processes and softwares as well. And the common thread here is, we're using all softwares that are starting to leverage AI in their processes, and it's key. Because even just small features like Canva being able to remove backgrounds without really doing anything for videos, for photos, different things like that, it's really, really big. Adding in frames and all that stuff. I could sit down and keyframe something specifically, or I could just throw a template and animate from Canva and tell it to AI something and make it prettier or upscale it or any of those things, and it'll do that. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
yes, we could sit down and really refine the image in Premiere and do all that, or I can just kind of plug in a specific set of instructions or drop a filter over in Canva and you're kind of done. But we dropped the footage into Canva, and there's a little bit more of a cut to it because I'll cut it into sections a lot of times. So I'll only upload intro, and then I'll do the what's new section. I'll do the brew section. I'll do our Buck's Tail section. I'll upload all those kind of individually so they have their own thing. Also, that helps with file sizing.
Got it.
Canva limits you to 1040 MB or MP, I think, megabytes a
Okay.
file. And by doing that, we kind of get around that. But from there, it's all the creative stuff, the fun stuff, where you're making it look pretty, where you're adding in things like graphics and different things like that. And AI doesn't need to play as big of a role in that aspect of it. But AI comes back after that, right? So we download the full episode. We have our prettified, quote unquote. That's a word now, by the way, prettify.
Critify? Spell that one for me.
Prettified.
Ah, prettified. Okay, it made the
Yes.
dictionary. Okay.
Yeah. But so you have your pretty podcast episode that is produced. What we do is we download that and then we upload it into two places. We drop it into a software called opus.pro and we drop it into a software called Cast Magic. Opus will go in and it will take the podcast and it will clip it into social media clips. But then Opus goes a step further and it gives each of those clips a grading, and it's a virality grading. I don't know what they kind of use to develop their scoring system, so I'm not sure, if it's a valid rating or not. I'll leave that in Opus's terms or whatever. But they give it a virality rating on a scale of 1 to 100, and they'll give you all your videos from best rated to lowest rated. Each video has a transcript. It'll caption the video for you as well. They also do AI B-roll, so you can turn on that feature and it'll generate all the B-roll. Let's say you don't want your podcast to have the host on the screen. You want it to be B-roll. It'll generate all the B-roll for you. But that essentially clips all the stuff that we put out onto social media. It does all of those for us.
Wow.
We go through and we pick each clip, and then we'll edit the clips and kind of make them our own. But all of the specific choosing of where you're cutting in the podcast and choosing where you're clipping it is done in Opus. And like I
Wow.
said, you can refine each of those clips. You can go in and edit the clip by itself, and then, add in, if you want it to be a little bit longer, you can go through and add in the sentence that you want to add in, different things along those lines.
Oh, so you can
But
still play with the transcript there too.
yeah, yeah. What's
Okay.
really cool with Opus is that it'll give you the video, but since it transcribes the video and adds the captions onto it, it'll also show you the transcript there, and you can basically edit the clip based on the transcription again. Which, if you've done editing, you know that it's a really underrated feature to be able to just look through words and cut out the words that you want.
Yeah, I
It makes
can't
it
even.
so much easier.
I'll be able to do
Um,
this for a lot more than just the podcast too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Well, it's specific to the podcast in this situation, but
Yep.
you can upload any form of media. You can do a speaking video. With you, we've cut some of your speaking engagement
Yep.
videos on Opus, and it just gives us the best sections. One of the ads that we ran on YouTube was called "What Does Marketing and Lesbian Sex Have in Common?" That clip was 100% chosen by Opus. That one also happened to have like 70,000 views on it. So I guess the virality rating is doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but what I'm thinking is if you're somebody who does a lot of classroom teaching and you have videos of it, you can drop
Yeah.
that in. So I have a series called the Whiteboard series. We
Hmm.
can drop those videos in and create, 10 social media posts from each one that give some important tip that I
Well,
don't have
yeah.
to now go record a podcast or, sorry, a social media clip on that particular item. We just pull it right out of one of
Yeah.
those videos. It's
You
amazing. So
can do
don't get narrowed in when you're
courses.
hearing this that it's just podcasts, although this is great for our podcast and yours as well.
Yeah, yeah, and you can do it's really locked to wherever your imagination can think of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you were to drop a course in there, it would do that. You can also drop links. So let's say you want to take a YouTube video and clip that down. You can literally just drop the URL to your YouTube video in there, and it'll do that. Uh, like it, the the possibilities are limited to your imagination. You know what I mean? But so Opus, then we choose all of our clips, we pull those into a folder, and we're ready social media wise. We know what we're going to do, kind of how we're going to promote the episode or where we're going to post, how many we'll be able to post. We have all of our clips ready. Going back to Cast Magic, right? So we just uploaded the file into Cast Magic after it's been exported from Canva. And what Cast Magic does is it integrates into OpenAI's ChatGPT. But essentially, with Cast Magic, you drop your file into there. It's still the same thing. You can upload URLs as well. You can drop YouTube links, Vimeo links, different things along those lines. You can also, with Cast Magic, only upload the audio. So you don't even need the video for it because Cast Magic mainly works off of your audio.
Okay.
But Cast Magic will transcribe it, provide you with the transcript, your SRT, which is the file type that you would use for closed captions on your YouTube video or on your podcast. But then what Cast Magic does is you can, before you upload your video, preset a bunch of prompts. So what we have is we have our account set up with 15 different types of prompts. And what happens is after we run that video and it's in Cast Magic and it's uploaded and fully kind of run through, it will then take all 15 of those prompts and auto run those based on the transcript. So, for instance, one of the prompts is please give us 15 titles for this podcast episode, right? Make sure that they're geared toward entrepreneurial success or mindset or something along those lines, or finance and entrepreneurship. It can be for any of those categories, but the prompt is give us a title for the podcast episode, and it'll give us 10 to 15 titles that we can
And
use for
could
the
you say,
podcast
give us a
episode.
title that'll go viral and it will
Yeah,
be
yeah,
even
you could do
more,
that. I don't know if it'll be a title that'll go viral, but it'll try.
but it'll try. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, going further than that, we can also go ask it. So one of the prompts is for your guest series that you have, Know Your Map. Write us a thank you email directed toward the guest, highlighting specific stories and things that were talked about. You know what I mean? Please use a warm tone or something along those lines. And you have your email, your thank you for coming on my podcast email given to you based off of the recording of your podcast episode that you did with that guest. Um,
Wow.
that's just one of the possibilities. And then let's say we're uploading a podcast episode that we've done about balance sheets, and you want to make that balance sheet episode a full workshop or a course. You can add in a prompt saying, hey, could you turn this podcast episode into a course outline that I can use for developing a course on balance sheets or something along those lines.
Wow.
And that just automatically runs. So, with ChatGPT, with Gemini, with any artificial intelligence platform that you may use, what you'll find is a lot of it is prompting. That's the thing that takes the most amount of time. And essentially what Cast Magic does is it removes the time that you have to do to prompt your AI, and it'll just auto prompt it on all of these things that you train it on beforehand.
And you
You can
have
do
to load
different.
the audio, or could you just load a transcript?
Um, you do need the audio or video. I think. I don't think you can just give it a transcript
Got it. Okay.
because you're uploading a file. So I
Got
don't
it.
know if it would take a transcript. Yeah,
Got it. Okay, cool.
but I haven't tried that. It'll be. I should
What I'm
try that. It
thinking
would be
is,
an
for
interesting
example,
to
we're going to
see.
be running book club meetings
Hmm.
on my book that just launched. And
Yeah.
I would love to say, hey, we're going to run 4 of them. They're going to be 45 minutes long. I'd love to have something that said, hey, please read this script or this book and give me 4 great theme ideas and, fun ways to run a book club
Yeah.
for 4 45-minute sessions and see what it comes up with creatively. So it's not changing the fact that I know what I got to teach in these book clubs, but it is changing how we might make it sound attractive to people.
Yeah.
So I'd need to record the book to do that, or are there
Well,
other tools where
no.
you could do that?
So here's the cool thing, right? With that would be a completely different approach. So Cast Magic does your video or your audio, and it'll
Got it.
transcribe that, and it'll do that, right? But for what you're talking about, what I might do is I might use ChatGPT. I would probably use ChatGPT for this. I would develop a bot that I would train to be a course development bot or a book club bot, something along those lines. And essentially, with your training, we could go very detailed on that, but a brief kind of summary is you're giving this bot a set of instructions or a guidance, and this is what that bot will accomplish. So it is still tapping into OpenAI, but it's kind of giving you specific specialized guidance and information.
I
But
love
so
it.
I would go into ChatGPT, I would create a bot for this, and then what I would do is I would probably just upload the PDF transcript from Founder to Exit or whatever book you want to do this for, and then I would ask it to do that. And I would use Founder to Exit as your source material and just use the same kind of request or prompting. Please give me some ideas that we can use to have an interactive book club based on this, highlighting the 4 core systems in the book or something along those lines. That's how I would do that.
Okay, let's
But
do that.
it's still accomplishable. Oh, it's already on our list.
And now we've just
we
recorded it. You can have
yeah.
AI do it. Yeah, that's because that's really, really, really cool. So, and that's the thing I think, kind of what just blows my mind is what Francis has laid out here is something that's changed decades of how people have edited videos. I mean, I was back in
Yeah.
the day where we had VCR tapes and I did editing on tapes. And it was quite an adventure. And now, then I did a little bit of editing on Camtasia, which was a lot of work to get that done. Like you said, the manual stuff. Well, then I got Francis in my world and I haven't had to do it, but you had to do it manually.
Yeah.
So what's really cool about this is you talking to us about this as someone who's done the work the hard way or the old way a year ago, and now you're figuring out which skills you can easily replicate with AI and really leverage.
Yeah.
And just to kind of rehash the tools here and put my glasses on, but I pick up that our entire process is in FreeCut or FireCut, then in don't tell me FireCut, and then from there we go to don't tell me
No
uh,
hints.
Descript, right?
Hmm.
And then from Descript to Canva. And then
Yep.
once we get it out of Canva, we take it to
Cast
either
Magic
Cast Magic or
and Opus.
Hand Opus. Okay. And
Yeah.
that gets us everything we need both to get the podcast uploaded to all of its platforms, but then also all the social media posts that we need, all the images we need for the social media posts, all the video clips, and it
Yeah.
creates plenty of other content for us to use in other places.
Yeah, 100%. Now, we do a little bit of fine tuning. So, like, we'll take from Opus, we will take the transcripts for each of those clips, and then we drop those into ChatGPT, and we have some prompts that we already pre-designed that basically take the transcript from each clip and then make social media copy in your specific voice. So it'll have a little bit more humor, a little bit of sarcasm infused into it, that type of thing. So we still kind of add in a little bit more after that process, but essentially those are the tools that we're using just to get all of our content out. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's 5, 6 tools, and it's cut out essentially, 15 hours of work.
Yeah, really. And the
Hmm.
only difference really is Adobe Premiere is a piece that does cost money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Firecut
and
is, you can get trials for all of these things as well. There are free tiers, but free tiers will be limited. So you may have a lot of these platforms do is credit limits. So credit could be a word or a minute or, any amount of time that they're
got
viewing
it.
as currency there. But, with your basic plans, you can accomplish most of the entry level stuff that you would need to with this. And that's really enough to kind of get in, because what I would say is, be careful. Once you start, you're never going to want to
Yeah, really. That's what
stop.
it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. But you do wait, do you start all this with ChatGPT?
So ChatGPT is the front end. So before we record the podcast episodes, a lot of the times,
Got it.
the ideas, scripting out the intros and kind of our segues into different things like that.
Got
Um,
it.
that all comes from ChatGPT, and that's in the front end. We infuse ChatGPT kind of into that after part, because what happens is Cast Magic puts out our show notes, but it's not 100% perfect.
Yeah,
It'll give us basically an outline for show notes, and then
got it.
I'm taking 5 minutes and dropping that into ChatGPT and Pamifying it, and
Gotcha.
then we drop that into the show notes. But essentially, yeah, like those are the platforms. um,
Wow, and
and
Pamify has been is AI will do that for you, right? You can create. He's created these bots to kind of be my personality in various situations. So it's really
yeah,
kind of interesting to see as it gets smarter and smarter about who I am and my personality. It's really lining things up when it writes them with
yeah,
that, which is kind of fun. And in all these cases, just one last question because I want this to be very
yeah,
clear for everybody. We're literally moving the MP4 through all these processes, correct?
yeah,
So
yep.
Adobe Premiere, Firecut, then into Descript, then into Canva. This is an MP4 that's getting processed and creating an output MP4 that you're
Yeah.
moving to the next thing.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
And just to also be clear, like I said in the beginning, I'll reiterate it now. This is not the 100% perfect way to do any of
Right.
this. This is the way that we found all this. So if you guys know better ways, if you guys have better processes and systems, please, 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 please drop them in the comments or shoot me an email at francis@priorities.group, and I want them. Drop them over.
And we will drop all of what we've covered here in the show notes so you can give it all a try.
100%.
I don't even know if we have affiliate links for these things, Francis. If we do, we'll drop those in. If not, we'll just drop in direct links for you,
Hmm.
because it's really amazing. And here's the thing that I would tell you, because one of the things that I think is very frustrating for starting entrepreneurs is every time you move forward a half an inch, there's a rabbit hole. And you have to go in the rabbit hole, figure out what the hell's going on, come back out, move the next half an inch. It's part of why we use Simplero. If you don't know Simplero, it's an all-in-one CRM package that lets us, that kind of does everything soup to nuts. If I was a solo entrepreneur without a team, I could manage all of the tasks that need to be managed in Simplero, from setting up a course or whatever I want to sell to selling it to managing a group to having an email list to all those things. Well, the neat thing about the whole AI process is that we want it to stay simple, and these tools now let us do that, right? They become the thing that gets us out of the rabbit hole, so that as a starting entrepreneur with no team, these are all tools you could put in place today. And think about it. If you take out 2 hours of your time at every step of the production process for a podcast, you might be able to keep in-house for a few bucks that you pay for the software, something that you'd otherwise have to outsource to an expert. Now,
Hmm.
you definitely need to still put the time in that Francis is putting in, but it's a different value of time. Like, you get
Yeah.
so much more out of the time that you're putting into it now.
Yeah. And the other thing I would say too is, just as an emphasis, it's allowing me to focus and spend more time on the stuff that I actually enjoy in these processes. You know what I mean?
Bingo.
It's taking out the stuff that
The grunt
may
work.
be super time consuming and may be just grueling, like the cutting out all those silences, like the cutting out the crazy filler words, like the, really toning in the audio, all that stuff that is time consuming and difficult and stuff that, we were just wasting away at.
Or
It
we were
is
going to have to
allowing us to not
outsource it
have that.
eventually, or you were going to have to hire a team. Eventually, you've hired
Yeah.
your team, and it's just
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah,
Um,
that's exactly what it is.
yeah, and so I really do advise as you grow and scale. I honestly don't think, and we're going to cover this in our Buck segment as well. As you grow and scale your business, as you continue to evolve as an entrepreneur, it makes a lot of sense to think about where AI as almost an additional employee fits into your organization so that you can enrich the lives of your current employees, but also not have to hire new ones as quickly. And that's the
Mhm.
other big benefit for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, the one thing that just like, think of it this way as an entrepreneur, as an
Ah,
entrepreneur.
we'll fix that in AI Edit It, by
Yeah,
the way.
with the AI. But as entrepreneurs, money is a big focus. Imagine spending $5,000 on, 15 different softwares instead of spending $75,000 on two different
Yeah.
employees. You know what I mean? Just think
And
of
to
it
be
that way.
fair, you could do this without $5,000 of investment too.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah,
So,
you could do
that
this with, maybe $200 of investments, if
bingo.
that.
Bingo. It's cheaper than your microphone's going to be.
Exactly.
Everybody always asks, I'm going to do a podcast. What mic should I get? It's like, who the hell cares what mic you get? Pick
Yeah.
the way to do your production. That's the key.
Yeah. And then clean up that audio with the shitty mic in Descript because it's easy.
Bingo. There you go. I love Francis. This was amazing. I know, and we went a little long on this news segment on purpose because I knew that you all were going to get a lot out of this, that you want to take
Mhm.
notes, that you might want to circle back and listen to it again. You can do all that, and we've dropped all this in the podcast notes as well for you. So check these things out, guys. We are not just in the 21st century now; we're in 2024, so we're almost a quarter of the way through the 21st century, and this rate of expansion is so freaking fast. We
Yeah.
used to double our technology rate every, I don't know, 30 years, and then it was every 10, and then it was every 2, and now it's probably every month.
Mm.
So just, get in the game. Don't avoid it. Avoiding it is like closing your eyes to, a coming apocalypse. And you can,
Yeah.
instead of having it be an apocalypse, you can make it your best friend. It's kind of like your finances in your business. Make
I
them
love
your
that.
best friend. And Francis, thank you so much. You've made it our best friend, and you're one of mine, for which I'm grateful. So thanks again for joining us on the news segment.
Thank you for having me. It was awesome, and I hope to be back in the future.
I'm sure you will be. Take care.
Awesome. See ya.
Oh, it was so fun having Francis here. And what we're really talking about is how you can leverage AI in a lot of processes. And what I want you to do, if you've not listened to our episode 10 of the Cash Flow podcast, is to jump back and take a look at that, because there we talked about the pros of integrating AI into our bookkeeping and accounting software processes and requirements. And this is a pretty big deal because if you're a bookkeeper, if you're an accountant, or if you're an entrepreneur who needs to hire one, AI coming into this field has a lot of really good points, which we covered in episode 10, but there are a few cautions that I want to give you. And the way I would think about this is not an AI bash in any way, but it's a reminder. Do you remember back when the first, well, even still now, sometimes telephone answering machine hierarchy robots came into play? And I don't know if you were me, but I'd be on my phone and I'd be like, nope, none of those are what I want. Nope, none of those are what I want. And then I'd be like, get me a human. And I just press the 0 button over and over and over again, saying, get me a human. Right? This is kind of at the same point inside bookkeeping and accounting. You're going to want to scream, get me a human. Well, Intuit has a new thing called Intuit Assist, which basically is going to try and provide a lot of very positive stuff for you. So if you decided to do bookkeeping without a bookkeeper, you could. You'd buy QuickBooks, you do Intuit Assist. It might prompt your VA or you on what you need to do to close the books or to see your numbers. And if it got stuck or if it couldn't answer a question that you asked, it will call a human at Intuit who could then, dial into you and you can get that human intervention. So that's pretty cool. It does recognize when it's sort of run out of its capability and needs to now involve a human element. What I'll say to you though, and the cautions I want to give you, like anything else, like the first time you hit that telephone answering machine tree, is AI is learning. It's constantly learning. And some of the things it knows right away, right, so that it can put in place today are the bookkeeping rules, the accounting equation, all of those things that geeky types like me understand that entrepreneurs really don't need to understand. But it puts all the fundamentals in place so that you know you're getting at least information you can rely on. Or that's what you think, okay? What I want you to be careful of is that an AI robot that you may be relying on to do these things for you might not be picking up some of the subtleties that are important for you and your business. Is your business just starting up and needs to get investor cash? Is your business mid-cycle and is ready to grow? Is your business ready to exit? And are the categories right for valuation and for kind of doing everything we can to expand your multiple to the biggest possible multiple that you can get for your business? Do they know your individual employee issues that you're wrestling with? The clients that make you crazy versus the clients you love? It doesn't know all those subtleties. It'll be able to generate equations, but it might not be able to put that human judgment into it yet. No pun intended. Into it. Into it. Assist. Get it? So what I want to caution you on is 5 things to kind of watch out for as you're using AI if you decide that, hey, I'm just going to get an AI bookkeeper and an AI CFO. One is it's not a CFO. Okay, a good CFO is going to come in, run alongside you as the entrepreneur for a while, understand all the subtleties of your business, your personality, the environment, the economy, and integrate all that into a wonderfully relevant and easy to understand CFO advisory package for you or done for you package, whatever it might be. AI is not going to be able to do that right away. Now, eventually, I think it will. Just like these telephone trees have gotten better and better and better and better, eventually AI, because it's constantly learning, will learn about you, will learn about your business, will learn about accounting growth, the economy, the environment. It's not there yet. And I don't want you to go into this believing that that's there yet. If you need a CFO strategist friend in the foxhole, it's not going to be an AI robot quite yet. If you have a balance sheet that's a disaster and hiding all sorts of things that affect your profitability, it's not there yet. But I'm emphasizing the word yet because it's going to get there, because it's going to be constantly learning. So thing one, it's not a CFO. It's an AI robot that's been programmed by information that's available in academics that are available on the internet to be able to say to you, hey, your balance sheet should have its accounts reconciled. And they're not. Okay, great. But that's not quite like saying to you, hey, I'm seeing a cash flow problem coming if we take into account the fact that COVID has happened and you're no longer going to be able to have in-person events. So how are we going to address that now? And, the waterfall has shifted someplace else. How do I get myself back under that waterfall of revenue kind of thing? So the second thing is, and it's a little bit related, but it doesn't have all of the context yet, right? It has the context it can find on the internet, but it doesn't have your context. It doesn't know, for example, that you have a pet peeve about calling something gross profit instead of contribution margin. Or you want to create a line on your P&L that's called, as one of my clients did, miscellaneous shit, because she just wanted to know what she had to play with each month. It was her sort of playground budget. So it doesn't know the context that you're sitting in as the business owner, and it could miss something critical and provide potentially bad advice. And if you look at it, basically there are disclaimers all over the place saying, treat this with a grain of salt. So what I would advise, thing number 2, it doesn't know your context. Treat that AI with a grain of salt. Know that you might not really know all of the questions to ask, and it may not know yet all of the questions to ask. Third, I don't want it to give you a false sense of security. Okay, one of the things that I hear all the time from clients who just start with us is, I had a tax accountant, I don't know how this happened. or I had a bookkeeper. I don't know how this happened. Well, the bottom line is the bookkeeper wasn't qualified, and the tax accountant was watching out for your taxes, not for your management and cash flow. So AI is very much the same, right? I don't want you to get a false sense of security that if you turn on QuickBooks and you turn on Intuit Assist and you go hire somebody and a Fiverr person to go just run my books, whatever that means, that they're going to be able to do that with Intuit Assist, and you really know that you can count on those numbers. And there are a number of things we know as accountants, as CFOs, as really elevated bookkeepers, quite frankly, that have to be in place before you can rely on the numbers you're getting out of your bookkeeping system. And in looking at the AI that's there right now, we're not there yet. It's not making sure, as I know that you don't really care about, but you do, you just don't know it, that making sure the balance sheet is rock solid is absolutely imperative before I give you any financial information. If I don't know that, anything I give you isn't worth the paper it's written on or the MP4 it's recorded on. So there's that. Not a CFO. It doesn't know your context, and it can give you a false sense of security. Finally, it's got, I don't know how to put this. It doesn't know how to give you the alerts on the hidden issues in your financials. One of the reasons you want a real bookkeeper looking at this is because they can analyze it. They can go, and AI will get here more quickly than the other 3 points that I've just made, right? It'll get to the point where it's doing analytics and it's doing them well, but it needs a couple of years to really start learning how that looks in different industries and for different types of financials. So even though you think you're going to get all the alerts on the issues that are kind of hiding in your numbers, it's probably not going to catch them all quite yet because it's still learning. So that really is more just it's a teenager as opposed to a full-grown adult yet. Okay. And then finally, it's not going to necessarily be really good at differentiating subtleties. And this is where I come back to that damn phone tree that still makes me crazy when I get on it. It's like I never have exactly the problem that the phone tree lays out. I never have a button I can hit and go, yeah, that's the one I want. I shouldn't say never. That's very defeatist of me. But it is one of my pet peeves, those phone trees. But and I think this AI is going to be kind of the same thing. Like it's not going to have exactly the answer you want in exactly the language you ask it, and it may misinterpret your language. So one of the things we as humans can do, and what I do a ton in my business with my clients, is they'll ask me a question in their language, in their vernacular, in their understanding of the business. And I very quickly translate that and go, okay, I know how to answer him or her, but now I also need to make sure all these 20 things are correct before I give him or her that answer. I don't know that your AI yet knows what those 20 things are that they need to check in order to make sure that the answer that they're providing is relied upon. So I just want to run over these 5 again very quickly. And again, I am using the word yet. If you count it, I'm sure I can have Francis have the AI count how many times I said yet, because it will get there. And if you're a bookkeeper, if you're a CFO, you need to be aware of this and embrace it, quite frankly. I would love to have somebody, an AI looking over my shoulder going, hey, Pam, you missed that. That would be amazing for me and for my clients. And I would learn and grow as a result of that. Okay. So this is not negative against AI in bookkeeping and accounting businesses. This is it needs to grow up. Warning. And what I would say here then is the 5 things, a quick recap. It's not a CFO. Okay. It's a bot or it's a piece of computer code. It doesn't know your context for everything yet, but it will. It might give you a false sense of security that you have an expert on the other line, and what you have is some code so far, but it will grow. Number 4, it ultimately might not be able to alert you on all the hidden issues that you should be aware of. And number 5, it's probably not going to differentiate subtleties very well for a little while. So that's kind of my con picture of AI in bookkeeping and CFO work. And I just wanted to make sure I shared that because last week I shared the pros, and there are a lot of pros. So I encourage you to go back and look at episode 10, listen to this one, put the 2 together, and I think what you'll find is a very productive and healthy use of, if you're a bookkeeper or a CFO, using AI in your business. But if you're an entrepreneur who really doesn't want to learn accounting, how to make sure, if you're relying on it, that you are getting what you need out of it right now, and then watching it evolve. And we'll keep an eye on that as it does evolve. And I look forward to coming back. I was going to say a year from now, but it might be 2 months from now, and saying that 3 of these 5 cons are no longer on the table because they've been conquered. So that's it for today. I hope this has been a great episode for you to really kind of get your hands around AI and decide how you want to roll forward with it in your business. I hope that video was helpful, and I hope you subscribe to my channel for more information on finances in your business.